This is a News Channel 3 breaking news update.
And breaking right now, we are learning of what appears to be a major development in the case of the suspect charged with the 2016 Kalamazoo County shooting spree. Jason Dalton charged with the deaths of 6 people and seriously injuring 2 others.
But with jury selection underway and his trial about to begin, a huge development in court this morning. We are going to take you to the courtroom. We know that the families of the victims have been brought in. We are looking now at Prosecutor Jeff Getting in the courtroom right now. We are waiting, of course, for the judge to come into the courtroom. Also, suspect Jason Dalton. Today's supposed to be day 3 of jury selection, but right now it is unclear why jury selection has been halted at this time. Jury selection, this trial, this entire process has been a process that has been 3 years in the making since the February 20th shooting of 6 people and the serious injuries of 2 other people.
It's been more than 1,000 days, Erica, since that terrible dark September night, February night, a Saturday night, February 20th. Jason Dalton facing 16 counts. 6 people died, 2 seriously injured. The people killed in that mass shooting: Mary Jo Nye, Barbara Hawthorne, Judy Brown, Mary Lou Nye. Those 4 died outside the Cracker Barrel restaurant in Texas Township. Tyler Smith and Richard Smith died at a Kalamazoo car dealership. 2 others were injured. 14-year-old at the time, Abigail Koff, seriously injured, miraculously survived. Tina Carruthers also seriously injured. As you take a look now at suspect Jason Dalton, he has entered the courtroom. Again, we're standing by for what we're expecting to be a major development in this case. Kalamazoo County mass shooting suspect Jason Dalton. There he is in court right now. This was supposed to be day 3 of jury selection. Opening statements would follow and then a trial. But here we are now with jury selection being halted and the victims' families, Erica, being brought into court today.
We know at least 200 potential jurors were brought in for the past couple of days. They have been vetting those people, looking to see who is going to be best seated on that jury, who is going to be fair and unbiased in this case. The prosecutor saying he wasn't necessarily looking for people who knew nothing about the case because of the media attention with this case. Again, just looking for people who were going to be fair and unbiased in this case. To this point, and it's unclear if we will ever know a motive in this shooting. Police saying that Dalton's alleged victims were at random, the location also at random.
And we see Jason Dalton sitting next to his attorney right now, Eusebio Solis. And I believe we are waiting for Judge Alexander Lipsy to enter the courtroom. I have not seen him in there yet. I think that's the last piece of this puzzle. When he walks in, then we will learn exactly what is happening. But again, you're getting a live look at Kalamazoo County mass shooting suspect Jason Dalton in court. Jury selection, this was supposed to be jury selection day 3, but it's been halted. The victims' families have been brought into court. They are in court right now. The prosecutor is in court, and I believe we are just waiting on the judge to enter, and then we will learn what exactly is happening. We certainly expect this to be a major development.
Again, 48-year-old Jason Dalton faces 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of assault with intent to commit murder, and 8 felony firearm charges. Again, we are waiting for the judge to come into the courtroom at this point for what we are anticipating is going to be a big development in this case.
Yeah, February 20th, 2016, it was a Saturday night when this mass shooting happened almost 3 years ago, more than 1,000 days. In many ways, that seems like a long, long time ago. It's certainly been a long legal process. In some ways, it seems like it happened just yesterday, such a terrible, shattering event for our community. And there is the suspect charged for that terrible event, Jason Dalton, sitting in a Kalamazoo County courtroom right now with jury selection in his murder trial halted. We are waiting for the judge to enter the courtroom. The victims' families are in the courtroom right now. We're expecting this to be a major development, which we will find out, really, we expect in seconds here.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the victims' families are feeling at this point, what's going through their minds at this point. We do know that Dalton had only been an Uber driver for a couple of weeks prior to that massacre. The father of 2 was reportedly trying to save up money for a trip to Disney. So that's just some background information about Jason Dalton and what led up to this massacre. Again, February 20th, 2016, Police say Jason Dalton killed 6 people and critically hurt 2 others during a random 6-hour-long shooting rampage across Kalamazoo County.
And I mentioned all the victims except I stopped short of one because Jason Dalton walked into court, but Tiana Carruthers was the other survivor, and that happened at an apartment complex. And in that case, she shielded her daughter and other children from the shooter, potentially saving more lives, and as she was severely injured in that shooting. That was the third scene, so to speak. That was the first one where that incident happened, and then it moved on to the car dealership in Kalamazoo and also the Cracker Barrel restaurant in Texas Township. And there is the judge entering the courtroom. You saw Jason Dalton standing up. Let's listen in and learn what's happening.
Court calls the case of the people of the state of Michigan versus Jason Brian Dalton, case number 2016-0287-FC. Please state your appearances for the record.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jeff Getting, prosecuting attorney. I'm here on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan.
Your Honor, Jeff Williams, assistant prosecuting attorney on behalf of the people also.
Service Solis on behalf of Mr. Dalton, Your Honor.
Good morning, gentlemen. This is a time and place set for the trial of the people versus Jason Dalton. Court has been informed that there has been a resolution in this matter. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, Your Honor. We would ask the court to place it on the record here today.
Yes, Judge.
That case, Mr. Williams, if you could state what the agreement is at this time.
Your Honor, there is no sentencing agreement in that Mr. Dalton will be pleading to all counts against him. Those due, as the court knows, comes with a mandatory sentence. However, I believe there's some things Mr. Solis might want to say about the reasons.
Okay. Mr. Solis.
Judge, first of all, as a housekeeping matter, at this today I will be withdrawing, because I had not officially done so, withdrawing my motions for insanity. The reason for that is that the independent forensic examination that I had done does not meet the legal requirements of insanity, Judge. So I'd like to officially
Withdraw.
withdraw that.
Mr. Williams, the prosecution have a position on that?
We have no objection, Your Honor.
Court will accept on the date of the trial a withdrawal of that defense position as originally noticed by the defendant. Mr. Solis.
So, Judge, today I want the record to reflect that discussions of plea offers have been going on between my client and I for months since this case has been pending, and I spent an hour and a half with my client, Mr. Dalton, this past weekend, and I discussed the pros and cons of any potential plea, especially as charged. That's what's being done today. He understands those consequences. He is doing that against my advice. But in speaking to Mr. Dalton, there are reasons for that. There are personal reasons to him. He does not want to put his family through that, or the victims' families through the trial. So it's his decision against my advice, but I obviously will have to.
Thank you. Under those circumstances, Mr. Williams, what is the agreement?
Your Honor, Mr. Dalton will be pleading guilty to all counts. In counts 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11, he will be entering a plea to first-degree premeditated murder. In counts 13 and 15, he will be entering a guilty plea to the count as charged, assault with intent to murder, and he will also be entering a guilty plea to the associated felony firearm charges, which make up the even number counts in the felony information.
Mr. Solis, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
We call it plea agreement, but that's my understanding, Judge, of what's been offered.
Okay. Prosecution has offered that, and it would appear that the defendant has agreed without any agreement as to sentencing, which is either subject to statute or to the court. Mr. Dalton, if you would stand. First of all, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
Yes, it is.
If you would come forward, hopefully there's a microphone here. I would ask that he be sworn.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
For the record, your full name is Jason Dalton.
Correct.
Mr. Dalton, court has been advised of your intent to enter guilty pleas as to the various counts of this information. You should be advised that if you do enter such a plea, you will be waiving or giving up certain legal rights. You understand that?
Yes.
I'm looking for the advice of rights. Okay. I'm going to show you a document entitled Advice of Rights. Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I've read it earlier today.
Is that your signature at the bottom of the page?
Yes, both of them are.
You understand that if you enter a guilty plea, you will be waiving or giving up many of these rights because we won't be going to trial.
Yes, that's what Mr. Sluice explained to me.
Okay. You also understand that you're going to modify certain rights that you would have to an appeal. If you had gone through the trial, were found guilty, sentenced, and you didn't like the sentence, you'd have the right to file an appeal with the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals in that situation is required to review the record. The preliminary matters, everything leading up to the trial itself, to see if there are any errors committed either by myself or by the attorneys that would justify setting aside that particular conviction. The Court of Appeals doesn't necessarily have to find anything. Most of the times they don't. But they do at least have to look if you file an appeal in that circumstance. That's called an appeal of right. On the other hand, if you enter a guilty plea and for some reason don't like the sentence, you still have the right to file an appeal. But in that situation, the Court of Appeals would have the option of looking into the matter or not. It would be their choice. That's called an appeal by leave. You understand the difference in the two situations?
Yes, I do.
Has anyone threatened you to get you to enter a plea today?
No.
Besides what's been put forth on the record, has anyone promised you anything to get you to enter a plea?
No.
Okay. You're doing this voluntarily of your own free will.
Yes, I've wanted this for quite a while.
You understand that if you change your mind or say that you didn't want to enter a plea, the testimony you're giving right now can be used to support the fact that the plea is voluntary at this time. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Are counsel aware of any threats or inducements to the defendant to have him tender a plea at this time?
No, sir.
No, Your Honor.
I'm aware of none, Judge.
Okay. So, get this pulled up. Allegations of the information are that on or about February 20 of 2016 in the county of Kalamazoo, both the township of Texas and county of Kalamazoo, as well as the city of Kalamazoo and the township of Richland, that you engaged in the following activity. As to count one, that you did murder Mary Lou Nye, contrary to Michigan law, which would be in essence subject to murder, which is a felony that's punishable by life in prison. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Count two, on that date, you did carry or have in your possession a firearm, to wit a pistol, at the time you committed the offense of open murder related to Mary Nye. That's a felony punishable by 2 years in prison consecutive to any term of imprisonment. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to Count 3, that again on that date in Kalamazoo County, that you did in fact murder one Mary Jo Nye, contrary to Michigan law. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Count 4, again on that same date in Kalamazoo County, did you carry or have in your possession a firearm, to wit, a pistol, at the time you committed the offense of open murder with regard to Mary Jo Nye? That's a felony punishable by 2 years in prison, consecutive to any sentence that might be imposed for the murder of Mary Jo Nye. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Count 5, again on that same date in Kalamazoo County, did you in fact commit a murder of one Barbara Hawthorne, contrary to Michigan law, a felony punishable by up to life in prison? Punishable by life in prison. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 6, did you, again at that date in Kalamazoo County, carry or have in your possession a firearm, to wit, a pistol, when you committed or attempted to commit the felony crime of open murder with regard to Barbara Hawthorne? That's a felony punishable by 2 years in prison, consecutive to any other preceding term of imprisonment. As to that count, how do you count?
Guilty.
Count 7, on that date in Kalamazoo County, did you in fact commit a murder of one Dorothy Brown, contrary to Michigan law? That is a felony punishable by life in prison. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Count 8, did you on that day in Kalamazoo County carry or have in your possession a firearm, specifically a pistol, at the time you committed or attempted to commit the felony of murder with regard to with regard to Barbara Hawthorne, but I did not. As to count 7, did you in fact commit the offense of open murder with regard to Dorothy Brown, a felony punishable by life in prison? As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty to that one too.
Okay. Then as to count 8, did you have, on that date and date, did you carry or have in your possession a pistol at the time you committed the offense of murder with regard to Dorothy Brown, that being felony punishable by 2 years in prison, consecutive to any other sentence that might be imposed? As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 9, did you in fact on that date, in the same date in the county of Kalamazoo, did you in fact commit the offense of murder upon Richard Smith, contrary to Michigan law? That would be a felony punishable by life in prison. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 10, did you on that day and date in Kalamazoo County carry or have in your possession a firearm, to wit, a pistol, at the time you committed the offense of open murder with regard to Richard Smith? That's a felony punishable by up to 2 years in prison, by 2 years in prison, consecutive to any other term that's imposed. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
11 is that on or about that date, February 20, 2016, in the county of Kalamazoo, did you in fact murder Tyler Smith, the felony punishable by life in prison, with obviously the associated DNA testing that would be associated? As to that count, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 12, again on that day and date in the county of Kalamazoo, did you in fact carry or have in your possession a firearm, to wit, a pistol, at the time you committed the offense of open murder with regard to Tyler Smith? That would be a felony punishable by 2 years in prison, subsequent to any other sentence that was imposed. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 13, on that day and date in the county of Kalamazoo, did you make an assault upon A.K., a minor child, with the intent to commit the crime of murder, contrary to Michigan law? That is a felony that's punishable by up to life in prison, or a number of years, is consecutive to any sentence that might be imposed basically life for any number of years, along with DNA testing that would be involved with that. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Count 14. Did you, on that day and date, in the county of Kalamazoo, have or carry a weapon in your possession, to wit, a pistol, when you committed the offense of attempted to commit the offense of assault with intent to murder, contrary to Michigan law, that being a felony punishable by 2 years in prison subsequent to any other term of imprisonment that might be imposed? As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
15, on that same day and date in Kalamazoo County, did you in fact make an assault upon Tierra Carruthers with the intent to commit the crime of murder contrary to Michigan law? That would be a felony punishable by life or any number of years up to life under Michigan law. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
18, as to on that same day and date in Kalamazoo County, did you carry or have in your possession a firearm, to wit, a pistol, at the time you committed or attempted to commit the felony of assault with intent to murder, and you did this contrary to Michigan law? That being a felony punishable by 2 years imprisonment consecutive to and preceding any other imprisonment that might be imposed based upon the assault with intent to commit murder. As to that charge, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Okay. The court has indicated for purposes of confirmation of the underlying facts supporting the guilty plea, I've agreed that Mr. Williams can in fact go through each count and the questions associated with them. Mr.
Your Honor, before I do so, I'd ask the court to make one clarification for the record and to make sure we confirm Mr. Dalton's understanding. With regard to the murder counts, the court stated correctly that the maximum sentence is life in prison. I would ask the court confirm not only is it life in prison, it is life in prison without the possibility of parole, and also that that's not only the maximum sentence, that's a sentence mandated under Michigan law.
Court will advise Mr. Dalton, you understand that a conviction of murder carries the statutory, it's not discretion on the part of the court, statutory punishment of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. You understand that?
Yes.
Are you satisfied then with regard to at least the statements of Mr. Dalton with regard to pleading guilty to each of the counts?
I am. Thank you, Your Honor, and I'm ready to proceed with the
Mr. Dalton, the rules require that not only do we accept what pleas that you enter, but also that there be a factual basis on the record that would support the entry of the plea. That is the questions that Mr. Williams is going to ask you now. So, okay? Mr. Williams.
Mr. Dalton, on February 20th of 2016, were you in the county of Kalamazoo in the state of Michigan?
Yes.
With regard to count 1, while you were in Texas Township, did you cause the death of Mary Lou Nye by shooting her with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you intend to kill Mary Lou Nye?
Yes.
Was your intent to kill Mary Lou Nye premeditated, meaning that you thought about it beforehand?
Yes.
And was the killing of Mary Lou Nye deliberate in that you had time to consider the pros and cons of the killing and that you chose your actions before you committed them?
Yes.
With regard to count 3, while in Texas Township on February 20th of 2016, did you cause the death of Mary Jo Nye by shooting her with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you intend to kill Mary Jo Nye?
Yes.
Was your intent to kill Mary Jo Nye premeditated, meaning that you thought about it beforehand?
Yes.
Was the killing of Mary Jo Nye deliberate in that you had time to consider the pros and cons of the killing and that you chose your actions before you committed them?
Yes.
On to count 5. While in Texas Township on the 20th of February 2016, did you cause the death of Barbara Hawthorne by shooting her with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you intend to kill Barbara Hawthorne?
Yes.
Was your intent to kill Barbara Hawthorne premeditated, meaning that you thought about it beforehand?
Yes.
Was the killing of Barbara Hawthorne deliberate in that you had time to consider the pros and cons of the killing and that you chose your actions before you committed them?
Yes.
With regard to count 7, on February 20th of 2016, while in Texas Township, did you cause the death of Dorothy Brown by shooting her with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you intend to kill Dorothy Brown?
Yes.
Was your intent to kill Dorothy Brown premeditated, meaning that you thought about it beforehand?
Yes.
Was the killing deliberate in that you had time to consider the pros and cons of the killing and that you chose your actions before you committed them?
Yes.
Count 9. While in the city of Kalamazoo on February 20th of 2016, did you cause the death of Richard Smith by shooting him with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you intend to kill Richard Smith?
Yes.
Was your intent to kill Richard Smith premeditated, meaning that you thought about it beforehand?
Yes.
Was the killing of Richard Smith deliberate in that you had time to consider the pros and cons of the killing and that you chose your actions before you committed them?
Yes.
With regard to count 11, on February 20th of 2016 in the city of Kalamazoo, did you cause the death of Tyler Smith by shooting him with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you intend to kill Tyler Smith?
Yes.
Was your intent to kill Tyler Smith premeditated, meaning you thought about it beforehand?
Yes.
Was this killing deliberate in that you had time to consider the pros and cons of the killing and that you chose your actions before you committed them?
Yes.
With regard to count 13, while in Texas Township, did you try to and in fact physically injure A.K., a minor child, by shooting her with a firearm?
Yes.
Did you have the ability to shoot her at that time? Did you have a loaded firearm and were able to shoot someone at the time that happened?
Yes.
By shooting Abigail Croft multiple times, was your intent to kill her?
Yes.
While in Richland Township, did you try to and in fact physically injure Tiana Carruthers by shooting her with a firearm?
Yes.
By shooting her with a firearm, did you demonstrate that that was an ability you had at the time?
Yes.
And by shooting Tiana Carruthers multiple times, was it your intent to kill her?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton, were all of the acts that you described, to your knowledge, felonies in the state of Michigan?
Yes, of course.
And were they all committed with a firearm?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions with regard to the factual basis.
Already satisfied that we have taken a plea that is freely, voluntarily, and understandingly given,
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge.
and that the court, by entrance of these pleas and the allocution, complied with Michigan Court Rule 6.302.
The court has.
You have, Your Honor.
Court has.
Court is satisfied that the pleas that have been entered are knowingly, understandingly, voluntarily given. There are factual basis to support the entry of each of the pleas. Therefore, the court will accept the pleas as to the 15 counts that are listed. We will set this then for a sentencing hearing on Tuesday, February 5, 2019. It'll be at 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll be in courtroom D. I have to say that for logistical reasons, courtroom D will be held in what is now courtroom A, but in this building. Again, at 10 o'clock. At this point, based upon the entry of the plea, court will deny bond, and this matter will be processed at that time. Is there anything further?
No, sir. Thank you.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Nothing, Judge.
Thank you.
All right.
We have been listening to a major development in Kalamazoo County Court this morning. Jason Dalton stands up in court and says he did it. He is the Kalamazoo County mass shooter. He was set to go on trial for the crimes that led to 6 people dead, 2 seriously injured. But Jason Dalton stood up in court and said he did it. pleading guilty to all of the charges. And now, Erica, he's facing a mandatory life in prison without parole sentence.
Also, we want to note that at the beginning, whenever Dalton entered the courtroom with his attorney did speak up saying that he was against this guilty plea. It was against his lawyer's advice to make this plea, but Dalton said that he wanted to do this, wanted to do this for some time, and that he wanted to do this for personal reasons. We don't know at this point what those personal reasons are. We also, again, at this point, don't know a motive in this case.
Two major questions. There'll be a sentencing February 5th at 10 a.m. Perhaps we'll learn more about those motivations on that day. We saw family members of the victims weeping in court as Dalton was admitting his crimes. And of course, we are staying on top of this breaking news. We now want to head out to News Channel 3's Frankie Thompson.
She is live outside the Kalamazoo County Courthouse with how we got to this point. Frankie.
Yes, Erica and Kirk, we have just heard Jason Dalton plead guilty to all of the charges against him in this shooting spree, killing 6 people and injuring 2 more back in February 2016. Families of the victims say this brings some closure to the agony they've been suffering for nearly 3 years. This guilty plea comes right before opening statements were expected to start early this week. Dalton was an Uber driver the night of February 20th, 2016. In between Uber customers, police say he shot and killed 6 innocent people across the Kalamazoo metro area, injuring 2 others. Hours after his arrest, Dalton told police the Uber app took control of his mind and made him commit the crimes. Dalton's attorney was originally claiming an insanity defense leading up to this case. Friday, his attorney revealed Dalton did not meet the legal requirements for an insanity defense. Dalton's case was expected to start this week and last up to 2 weeks long. Coming up at noon, we're also working to hear from the loved ones and families of the people who were victimized in this shooting spree and how they feel about this long-awaited day and what this plea means to them. We'll have all of the latest updates on air and online on our website at WWMT.com, as well as our Facebook and Twitter pages. For now, we're reporting outside of the Kalamazoo County Courthouse. Frankie Thompson, News Channel 3.
All right, thank you, Frankie. Again, if you are just joining us, Jason Dalton, the suspect in the 2016 Kalamazoo County shooting spree, has pleaded guilty to all of the charges against him. He stood up in court this morning and said, "I did it. I committed these crimes." He now faces a mandatory minimum life sentence with no chance at parole.
This plea bringing at least perhaps some closure to several families in this community who will forever grieve the loss of their loved ones. As we know, 6 innocent lives were taken that day. 2 others were seriously injured. We are working to get reaction from those survivors and those family members right now. We saw them in court, very emotional. As always, stay with News Channel 3. We will have continuing coverage of this breaking news right here on air at noon, at 5 and 6, and of course on our website, WWMT.com.
But for now, we'll return you to regular programming. We'll see you at noon with the latest.